Welcome to day 3 of the Sunflower Seams Laurel Sew Along. Today we are going to tackle steps 13 through 38. If you are making the dress version, you can skip steps 13 through 28. However, if you're making the top, let's go ahead and get started. First, you are going to separate the partial lining from the main on one side of your top. You're going to want to bring it to the opposite side. Now take the main and the partial lining from on the opposite side of what you just separated and roll it towards the neckline. Right now we're doing the burrito method. Now grab the side of the partial lining that you separated and bring it back over, enclosing the roll. You will want the right sides of the main and the lining to be touching. Now align your side seams and your arm size and clip. Once you have your arm side clipped, you can now sew it. You will want to use your 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way around the curved armhole. Once you have sewn around the armhole, you will take your scissors and trim away half of the seam allowance. Now clip around the curves of the seam allowance. Next, you will want to separate the main and the partial lining and stick your hand through and grab the opposite side and pull it through to turn it right side out. You have just enclosed your first armhole for your sleeveless top. Now you will want to repeat those steps to enclose the opposite side. So again, separate your partial lining from your main and bring it to the opposite side. Now take the opposite and roll it towards the neckline. Now bring the partial lining over with the right sides of the fabric touching and align it with the side seam, the shoulder seam, and the other side seam. Now sew. Once again, you will want to cut away half of your seam allowance. In the seam allowance that is left, you will want to clip the curves. Now on one side, you're going to open up the partial lining in the main and stick your hand through and grab the other side. Now pull it through to bring it right side out. You have now enclosed both armholes. You will now want to press it flat. Now it is time to make our top placket. Even though I'm making the sleeveless top, these steps are applicable to the sleeved top as well. First, you will want to turn your top with the back of the top facing up. You will want to find the center of your back. You can do this by folding it in half, lining up the shoulder seams. Once it is in half, take a pin and put it through the fold. Another way that I like to do it is whenever I cut my back top out, I leave the slight seam that the fold created. I do not iron this out until after I've created my placket. That way I have a line all the way down showing me where I can cut. Now you are going to use the chart found on step 21 in order to find out how long you need to cut your slit. For the size that I am making, my slit size is 7.75 inches. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to start at the top of the neckline. I'm going to measure down 7.75 inches. And I'm going to draw a line using my water washable pen down to that mark. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut through the back main and the back partial lining. But you're going to want to make sure that you're not going to cut through your front. So put your hand under, bring it up a little bit, and then cut. Now you're going to take your top placket piece and lay it down with the right side of the fabric touching the table. Fold up one long edge of the placket with the wrong sides of the fabric touching. You're going to fold it up a 1/2 inch and press. Now you're going to take the top placket and lay the unfolded long raw edge up on one side of the back top. Line the short edge of the placket up with the top of the neckline. Pin the placket down the slit. Make sure you are clipping or pinning the partial lining as well. Once you reach the bottom, open it up and maneuver the placket up the other side of the slit. Once you have your top placket clipped or pinned, you're going to sew along the clipped or pinned edge. You're going to use a 1/8 seam allowance. Once your top placket is pinned or clipped, sew along the pinned edge. You will want to use a 1/8 seam allowance. Once you reach the bottom of the placket, you will want to maneuver your fabric in such a way that it doesn't bunch up. Once you attach your top placket to the top, take your scissors and clip a V at the bottom of the placket. Now lay your placket flat and press the placket and top seam in towards the placket. After you press the seam, bring the folded edge of the placket towards the seam. You will want to enclose the seam in the placket. So you will bring the fold and put it along or right over the stitch line. You will want to pin from the main side of the fabric, making sure you get the back side of the placket. Now you want to press your placket flat. Now sew as close to the folded edge as you can. With the placket laying vertically, you will want to fold the left side up. In doing this, you are tucking it behind where you cannot see it and folding it up on the right side. Now you will baste at the top of the left side of the placket. Now it is time to create our necktie collars. For these steps, I will be using my dress bodice. However, these steps are applicable to both the dress and the top, no matter what sleeved version it might be. You want to take your bias necktie strip. First, you are going to fold one long raw edge in 3/8 of an inch and press. Then you will fold the opposite long raw edge in 3/8 of an inch and press. Once both long raw edges are pressed, you will fold it in half with each folded edge meeting each other. Once the necktie is folded in half, you will press again. Once those steps are complete, you will open up one end of your necktie collar and fold the short raw edge in 3/8 of an inch. Then you will fold the side back in and fold the opposite side back in, and then fold it in half again. Now take a pin and secure that edge. You will want to repeat these steps for the second necktie collar. Now take your dress bodice or your top and open up the end that is not secured with a pin. Take the open end of your bias tape and lay it on top of your top or bodice back, lining up one of the long raw edges with the neckline. You will want your necktie bias collar to extend past the back of your top or your dress bodice by 3/8 of an inch. Pin or clip. Now maneuver your necktie collar around the neckline of your dress or top towards the V-slit. You will want to slightly tug your necktie bias collar so that it hugs the curves nicely. Continue pinning until you reach the V-slit. Once you have pinned your bias collar all the way around the neckline to the V-slit, you will now sew around the curve of the neckline. You will want to sew 3/8 inch away from the raw edge. Once you have sewn your necktie collar, lay your top or your dress bodice down with the main touching the table. Take the end that is hanging off of your bodice or top and tuck it in, making it flush with the back of the bodice or the placket. Now, fold the necktie over along the memory crease that we created, enclosing the end of the necktie as well as the seam of the neckline. Pin around the neckline, enclosing the neckline seam. Continue pinning past the V-slit, all the way down to the pin that you secured the end of the necktie collar. Once you are done pinning, top stitch starting at the back of the necktie. You will start at the top and top stitch down, and then top stitch across the neckline seam all the way down to the end of the necktie. Then turn and sew down to secure the ends. Once you have sewn all the way down your necktie collar, you will want to repeat steps 29 through 38 for the opposite side. You have now completed day 3 of the Laurel Sew Along. We are halfway through and I cannot wait for tomorrow. Thank you for joining.